I'm going to wait one more minute before we get started. So we can start on the dot at noon, but welcome. I guess it's going to be less than 1 minute. So it is now noon. Today, September 24th. Welcome to today's webinar. And this one may be a hot topic considering how ubiquitous fast food is. So the title of this week's webinar is Ranking Fast Food, a Dietitian's View of Drive-Thru Options. And of course, I'm not going to be able to touch on every single fast food item out there, but if you do have particular questions about one, I'd be happy to address that either at the end of this webinar, or if you need to get off soon, feel free to reach out during. Feel free to hit that little question button at the bottom of your screen, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So let's get started. Again, as always, I do like to say, remember, it's the quality of your calories that matters. And I think this will be a really good presentation that goes over in examples of where you can see that you're going to get higher quality calories in certain food choices versus others. Because when it comes to fast food, really the quality can vary. And if you are going to be eating fast food, it can be inevitable for many of us, depending on our busy lives. Then we want to make sure to pick the best possible choice that we can whenever we can. So what we're going to cover today is what to look for when making a better fast food choice. I also cover a few popular fast food chains and list out my top suggestions, some of my top suggestions for those. I also wanted to cover a little bit about some foods that we may think are healthy or maybe benign, but they don't actually equal healthy. And we'll touch on some popular, what would the RD do techniques? So if I'm looking at a menu, what am I aiming for? What am I looking for? And these are a few techniques that many dietitians will either recommend or we use in our everyday lives. And finally, like I mentioned, as always, at the very end, I leave time for your questions if you have any. So, spotting those healthier options, what are some of the criteria that we should look for? And we do have some main priorities that I think may be familiar to you. And one, first and foremost, is where is the protein? It made me think of the Where's the Beef ad campaign done by Wendy's many years ago. But you can think of it in those terms too. Where's the protein? Where's the beef? Because that's what we always want to aim for first. Because as you know, it can help with satiety, can help with that muscle maintenance so that as we lose weight, we're not losing too much muscle mass at the same time. Also ask, is it balanced? One example was there are some sandwiches that have a lot of white bread, but not much filling in the middle, not a lot of vegetables, not a lot of meat. So that would be somewhat unbalanced. Or is it fatty? Sometimes there are sausage or bacon-based foods. I could even think of a BLT. You know, we've got the lettuce and the tomato, but bacon isn't too much protein if we really think about it. And what about those veggies? Is there any room for that? Are we able to add in some more? And look for any whole foods and anything that might have more fiber in it, because that can equal some nutrient density for you. So you're going to get more vitamins, minerals, and also hopefully feel fuller for longer as well. I also comment on portion size. With GLP-1 medications, you may not be feeling quite as hungry. And so maybe the food item would be acceptable, but the portion would just be too large for you to eat. So would you still be able to get in enough nutrition with the type of portion that you can handle? And this can vary from person to person, but I do think that it's always good to keep portion size in mind. Also, maybe you don't have a super restricted appetite and you can eat larger portions. Well, we still want to make sure they're not too large. And as always, going easy on the added sugars to avoid excess empty calories, if you will, and salt, especially if that's a concern of yours for blood pressure reasons or any water retention issues. So I figured we should just jump right in and do the fast food face-off to see if we're using those priorities that I just mentioned, what can we find at some of these places? Chick-fil-A, for example, thankfully they do offer grilled chicken options. And one of my personal favorites whenever I have eaten there is their grilled chicken sandwich. I list off to the side the calories and also the protein content. And some extra perks that the grilled chicken sandwich offers is that they use a whole grain bun, and there are a few vegetables involved. I also made a mention of their market salad because you can choose to add grilled chicken. An area that salads can get people messed up with, though, of course, are the dressing options. So be sure to pick one of the lighter dressing options. I believe they have a light Italian available because that will limit those added sugars and also limit too many calories. And there are some people who have varying opinions on the grilled nuggets from Chick-fil-A, but if that's something you enjoy, that is an option that you can look into as well. Maybe that is not quite as balanced if it's just the grilled nuggets, but at least you know you're getting a protein that's not fried or smothered in anything. One of my favorite fast food, if you will, options is Chipotle or Qdoba. Because what they can do is they can offer burrito bowls or salads, depending on what you're ordering there. And if you can choose to have light or no rice whatsoever added, you are going to decrease the calories and also uh, that filling sensation that sometimes rice can add, but you're still going to get in quite a bit of protein. They are focused on real whole foods, and so choosing those beans, fajita vegetables, those whole fresh foods, and their protein options are quite healthy in general. And that would be my top pick and what you should build at a place like that. And so that's probably my top favorite out of all of these, but I know that's not always accessible. And last I've checked, I've never seen a drive-through at one of those, but I could be wrong. Moving on to Starbucks, it may not be considered a common fast food option, but they do offer protein boxes. And one of the ones they have has an egg, has fruit, nuts, and cheese, which is fairly balanced. And it comes in what I call sort of a bento box style, so very portable. And again, you can see that you will get a nice amount of protein, and we're still looking at some whole foods, nothing blended, nothing too processed there. Moving on to a few other fast food options, and these are options that you probably may run into more often, especially if you're driving down a highway on a road trip. What are some of the big ones we see? Well, McDonald's, of course, stands out. Probably my favorite item that McDonald's could provide is unfortunately only available in the mornings, but that is their Egg McMuffin. Their Egg McMuffin uses a real egg, and they don't have a whole lot of extra there. So you still can get some good amounts of protein, and it's one of the less processed items. But if we're looking at lunch and dinner options, while it breaks my heart to say that I didn't see any grilled chicken options, which I believe they used to have, they do have a McChicken, and it's probably one of, again, the healthier choices that you can get there and still get in a decent amount of protein. Moving on, Taco Bell. Tex-Mex seems to win again a little bit here because what they offer is something similar to the burrito bowls. It's called their Cantina Chicken or their Cantina Veggie Bowl, which can offer sort of a variety of, or offer quite a range of protein that you can get, either the 14 to 24 grams. But if you can decrease the rice and increase those veggies, the beans, you're going to increase that fiber content, and you may also increase some protein content when you're increasing the beans. If, however, a Cantina bowl is just off, not an option for you, I did want to encourage you to choose soft tacos instead of crunchy. Those tend to be a little bit more easily digested. We know that it's not going to be a deep fried option, so that would be your better choice if we're looking at tacos in general. Moving on to Wendy's. Wendy's recently I saw had a bit of a bad rap in an article I read where they were considered to not be quite as healthy. But thankfully, it looks like some options are opening up, and I wanted to mention those. So they do offer a grilled chicken wrap. I'm not a big wrap promoter. Wrap does not inherently mean healthy. However, it does have grilled chicken in there, and it does seem to be a little bit lower on the total calories and carbiness in this particular instance. You can also pick a junior hamburger, so it is a smaller size, and that will keep you covered. It's not quite as high in protein, but you know that it's not going to be a whole lot of extra as well. I also did want to mention their chili. Their chili is quite high in protein. It's delicious and not that high in calories. And they do have a salad where I would encourage you to get the dressing on the side, but if you add the chicken to their apple pecan salad, you've also got a really nice, pretty well balanced option there. So they do have some options available to you. I did want to mention when I was looking into this, I thought immediately I should comment on the sodium content of the chili, just because generally if you think soups, chilies, stews, you think high sodium. But actually the chili and I believe the chicken salad and the grilled chicken wrap were all pretty similar in sodium content, hovering around the 1,000 milligram mark. The junior hamburger actually happened to be the lowest in sodium. So bear that in mind. Usually fast food will be higher in sodium across the board, but if that is a concern for you, I do recommend checking out their menu or nutrition facts on, say, their app or online ahead of time, just so you can be aware of how much variability you get with sodium. Also, if you have the Premier Weight Loss booklet, there are also a list of some fast food options. Some of them are similar to what I listed here, and there are some others I didn't mention, and that's on page 13. So be sure to check that out as well. Moving on to when healthy isn't so healthy. And the first thing I wanted to mention was smoothies. I think smoothies are something that pulls the wool over a lot of our eyes because most smoothies, I'm not going to say all, but most or many tend to be high in sugar because it's usually fruit and fruit juice, and that's about it. Maybe some kale blended in or some spinach, but usually it's just fruit. And so unless you're actively choosing to add protein and also choosing to limit the amount of juice in there, smoothies are not going to automatically be healthy. There are ways to make them healthier, but just be aware that smoothies generally aren't going to be your friend automatically. Also, while I did recommend a few salad options ahead of time, salads, again, are one of those items that's not immediately what I would call health food because oftentimes we cover them with certain toppings. If there's dried fruit involved, say like craisins, which already have sugar added to them, or a bunch of extra cheese, maybe a bunch of extra bacon, or some fried onions or chips. All of these things can add up, adding extra calories. And also, we're not quite eating the nutrient dense lettuces or spinach, right? We're maybe eating the delicious toppings. And dressings, depending on what you're picking, can also increase the calories. I will say, broadly speaking, if your option is between, say, ranch or honey mustard, pick the ranch because at least we're avoiding added sugars. However, whenever possible, oil and vinegar-based dressings will be a better choice generally. Also, sub sandwiches. Usually sandwiches are something that we can't avoid and they are portable and easy to eat on the road. But as I had said early on, there are quite a few sub sandwiches out there that may sound healthy, a sandwich, it's not fried, but many times it's a lot of white bread or maybe a wheat bread, but still very little else. So it's quite a bit of carbiness without a lot of extra balance. This can be adjusted. Sometimes people will make a lettuce wrap instead from any type of sub place, or maybe they will limit the amount of bread they're getting, but just be aware that a sandwich doesn't actually necessarily mean healthy. And in the spirit of fall, I figured I would mention a pumpkin spice latte, since for some people it's quite popular right now. But be aware that many flavored coffee drinks at almost any type of coffee establishment, those are going to have quite a few added sugars and syrups. And so one of the smallest versions of pumpkin spice latte still contains 38 grams of sugar, which is quite a wallop of sugar, to say the least. And many people will order grande instead. That seems to be the default size, and that goes up to about 50 grams of sugar. So really, it's more like a dessert at that point instead of coffee. So I wanted to mention that as well. Now, if you were to see me behind the counter at a fast food restaurant, what are some things that I might do, and things that maybe we didn't quite cover in the previous slides? First of all, if customization is an option, try to do that as much as possible. I know that fried chicken can oftentimes taste better than grilled chicken, but if you can substitute grilled for the fried option, always try and pick that. Also, sauces, usually the problem that happens is because there's just a little too much that is added. So try and get those on the side, and then you can add in a smaller amount. And whenever you can, ask for extra vegetables, maybe an extra lettuce, extra tomatoes, whatever you're ordering or wherever you're ordering. If you can, try and up that amount whenever possible. Also, choose low-calorie drinks. Water is always your friend, unsweet tea or black coffee. Full disclosure, I do not drink black coffee, but when I do drink coffees or lattes in the morning, I'm only adding milk and maybe a stevia. I'm not adding extra flavorings or anything like that. But if you are going to treat yourself, then sometimes you can get sugar-free options. The diet sodas are going to be a better choice than regular soda, of course, if you don't want to just drink water. And coffee, while I said without flavorings, there are sugar-free syrup options out there as well. And so those would be the ways that you want to choose if that's something that you're going to treat yourself. Also, talking about portion control, kids meals, there are some people I know who will order kids meals instead because it's just a smaller amount and it still makes you feel full. And kids meals also give you the option frequently to have apple slices on the side, not necessarily automatically coming with, say, fries. So that's, although I believe that can be an option otherwise, but I wanted to mention that. If kids meals really isn't your thing, which is perfectly fine, then try and save half if the portion is large for later, or share with a friend. If you went somewhere and had maybe one of those burrito bowls and it was just too large, feel free to put that lid back on and save it, or again, share with a friend. And finally, I know I mentioned fries earlier, and so I do think it's a good idea. Try and focus on the full meal that you're having. So try and not undo your good choices with then getting a side of fries if you can help it. Or if there are fries, limit yourself to just a few, and that's it. So oftentimes when there are these meal deals available, I would suggest foregoing it if at all possible. Most of the time, we don't need that bag of chips or that side of fries, and the discount really isn't worth it if you're going to undo the good from your main entree choice. But if a side of apple slices is available or something else that is not necessarily a fried or unhealthier option, then by all means include that if you want. So to tie this all up and put it together, if fast food is going to happen, because I think it happens for all of us from time to time, if we're traveling or just do not have time, please know it's not the end of the world. There are ways to navigate it. And as long as you remember those priorities, look for your protein, look for your option that has the most whole foods and fiber in it, and try and aim for a good balance as well as keeping the portions under control. And if you can focus on those and also make a few changes, like customizing your meal a little bit, making those can really increase the quality of your choices. Or, as we said before, making those changes can increase the quality of your calories and your entire outcome for that day. So again, it's focusing on the better, not necessarily perfect. And with that, I wanted to open it up to questions. I will wait here for just a little bit, of course. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit that bottom question mark. And I believe the bottom left of your screen. You can choose to be anonymous or not. And while I will wait here for a few, if you think of the question later on, or it comes to mind, say later this afternoon, by all means, please reach out to the Premier Weight Loss staff. If they can't answer the question, they'll certainly direct it to me and I will be happy to address it. So I'll sit here silently for a moment and watch for any incoming questions. Okay, and with that, that concludes our day. I hope you got something out of this. And again, please feel free to reach out at any time if you have questions for me about this or any other nutrition-related topic. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.